Good evening, and thanks for joining tonight's TI Technology webinar hosted by Texas Instruments, where tonight we're going to take a look at exploring some of TI's finance tools to help you engage your students in quantitative reasoning. My name is Mike Houston, and I'm the moderator for this event. I teach algebra and calculus near Pittsburgh, where I use TI technology to make tough-to-teach, tough-to-learn concepts accessible to all my students. Tonight we're really lucky to be joined by our two panelists, Veronica Carlson and Kim Thomas. For 34 years, Veronica has taught mathematics at Moon Valley High School in Phoenix, where she is currently teaching college algebra. Veronica is a T-Cube national instructor and also an adjunct math instructor at Glendale Community College. Veronica has presented at many national, state, and local conferences and enjoys working with teachers, helping them to integrate TI technology into their classrooms to help students have a greater understanding of mathematics. Veronica, thanks so much for joining us tonight.
Hello, hello. Greetings from sunny Arizona. Happy to be here.
Thanks, Veronica. And Kim is in her 24th year of teaching high school math and is passionate about using technology as a tool to explore and understand mathematics. Kim has taught the spectrum of math all the way from Algebra 1 up through AP Calculus BC and is currently teaching geometry and BC Calculus. Kim enjoys working with teachers, helping them to incorporate effective strategies for teaching with graphing technology while developing a better understanding of state standards. Kim, we're lucky to have you with us tonight. Thanks so much for joining us.
Happy to be here as well.
We're expecting a large crowd, so your audio is muted. Feel free at any time to send any questions that you may have to Kim or Veronica using the Q&A window on the right side of your screen. We'll also be using the chat window to send general messages. As a reminder, this session is being recorded, and we'll provide a link to the event certificate of attendance at the conclusion of this event. We hope you don't have any audio issues, but in the event that you do, try selecting Communicate in the top of the WebEx menu and choose Audio Broadcast. At this point, Veronica is going to discuss our agenda.
All right. Well, we've had the welcome and introductions. Thanks, Mike. And then I want to just say a few words about the need for financial literacy. We're going to discuss an amortization table. We're going to use the finance app for the TI-84 Plus CE. And then we're going to use the finance solver for TI-Nspire technology. And then we're going to go back and feature the TI-84 Plus CE catalog. And then we're going to finish it up with creating an amortization table with TI-Nspire technology this evening.
Great, thanks so much. And Kim is going to discuss our expected outcomes.
So by the end of the webinar, our expected outcomes are that we're going to investigate time value of money, or the TVM solver, using both the TI-84 Plus CE and TI-Nspire technology. We're going to explore the dynamic capabilities of the TI-Nspire technology to explore different situations when variables change. And within all this, we're going to look at amortization tables using both the TI-84 Plus and TI-Nspire technology.
Kim, thanks so much. Veronica, you have control. It's all yours. Feel free to share your screen.
All right. Well, just briefly, I just want to, Kim and I would like to share with you that there is a need for financial literacy. And then we teach high school seniors predominantly, but all of our students need to be more financially literate. And we want them to make good decisions as they graduate high school and enter that field or the world of career and college and career ready. And also we want them to be life ready. We went to our own Arizona standards, and we went to go find out what they say for fourth-year math standards are requiring here in Arizona. And we know that many states now are requiring to have some financial literacy within their standards. And we saw this quote from this book here, On the Money. It is an NCTM publication from Peters, Bay Williams, and Martini, and that if it's just, we don't want as teachers something else that we have to do with our students. We already have a lot of curriculum and information that we need to get across. And so if we could take financial literacy and integrate it within mathematics, so it's not one more thing to do, but we can use it and help it to be a math skill as we're teaching our content, that might be something that would be good for our students and better for us as teachers. We liked what Arizona had to say here with that we want students to have some awareness of income and expenses. With the age of debit cards, it's like magic money, and students are not aware, even adults sometimes, to plan for the future. That's important too. A lot of businesses don't even have pensions anymore. And then to know we always talk about using math models, but to use those math models to communicate just different or financial scenarios, and along with some personal and social effects of financial decisions. So we definitely see that there is a need for financial literacy out there among our students. So as Kim and I did this activity with our students, we started in a different spot initially, and we realized that students did not really know what a amortization table is. And so I'm going to go here to one that I found I Googled amortization table, and I found this table, and we thought it looked very nice. And what I'd like you to do, and use that chat window, is to think about your students and in your classrooms, and what would your students notice? Let's just look at the column of interest, and what would be some things that your students would perhaps notice about that. And I don't see my chat window here, so Mike and Kim, what are people saying?
All right. So this would be the time when it'd be great for people to go ahead in there. So one answer is it only goes down by about $1.
Okay.
Is one response.
All right. And is it consistently $1? Not all the time. Here's $2. And then again, looking at this other column, what about principal? What's happening with principal? You may even need to have a discussion about what principal is. What is interest? And what's happening there?
So we have some participants that, so one participant said that, I believe referring to the first question is it goes down. The numbers are going down. And then another person mentioned that the principal increases as the interest decreases.
So it sounds like we could definitely in our classrooms talk about rate of change. It seems like a rate of change. And as some of you are observing that it looks like it's just $1 at a time, but there are some areas where it is $2 at a time, and over here it is, again, $1 and $2. And as you can see up at the top here in our amortization calculation, what we did is we're buying a home for $200,000. We took a 30-year loan, and we're using a 5.25% interest, and then this is the area code of our school where we're at. And so that's what this is showing. And as Kim and I, we really continued to look at this, and we wanted to talk about rate of change. It kind of looks linear, but what I have here to show you is that this is the formula for an amortization calculation, and it's not linear. It does look linear, and if you did a smaller loan, it would really look linear, but it's not. And I just wanted to show you that kind of the math behind the scenes. We're not getting into this formula this evening. We're going to let our calculators do all the work. We want to make sure you understand how to utilize the app and the financial solver in our technology. So that's what we started off, or we would with our students now. We had to backtrack a little bit because they didn't really understand a loan and what really happens in a loan, and how, you're paying a lot of interest up front. And so now we're going to move to the scenario that we're going to have this evening, and that's going to be about driving or getting a loan on a dream car. And so Kim and I both have our navigators in our classroom, and so we did a quick poll, and we decided what it is that we wanted to buy and what would be a popular car, and it turned out that a Camaro, and we went ahead and picked a 2018 Camaro, and this is fully loaded with a lot of bells and whistles because we wanted to show you know, just a good amount of money for our loan. Normally car loans are about 5 years, but with our technology you can change it. Some people are able to do a 4-year loan, or maybe you need to extend it to a 6-year. And then our interest rate, and this is, we're going to select 4.2 for our problem this evening, and that's if you have average credit. If you have really good credit, you could even do it with a 0% interest, but for the sake of our problem and our scenario, we want to have some interest there. So before I pass the ball to you, Kim, any comments from our chat window?
Just a couple of people are really excited about seeing this, and then I just asked a question. Have you used the TVM solver before in either the TI-84 or the TI-Nspire? So thumbs up, yeses, nos, maybes, long time ago.
All right, well, Kim, I'm going to go ahead and pass the ball to you, and let's jump into our TI-84 CE.
All right, so I have my screen right here, and I'm using the TI-84. This is my teacher software, and if I'm using this in my classroom, the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to reset the calculator, because this information here doesn't need to, I don't need this from class to class. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to press second mem, and I'm just going to reset the defaults on my calculator. And what that's doing is that's just kind of clearing everything out so I don't have to worry about anything. And it's not going to necessarily clear everything here, but I can now work with things so that when I go into my app, I don't have previous information there. So what we're going to do is we are going to go into the Finance app, which is right here at this button. And to buy our dream car right here, we're going to go into TVM Solver, which is number 1. And this didn't clear out. I must not have hit something right. But we're going to go with a 5-year loan. So that means it's 5 years. And we can multiply that by 12 months. And I'm going to press enter. Our interest is 4.2%. And this was something for my students that was kind of difficult for them to kind of grasp at the beginning, because we've taught them all year to take interest and move the decimal twice, and this is a case where we didn't. So we had a lot of good conversation about what we do in financial situations and financial math, and then what we do for algebraic math and different applications there. Our car is $40,000, so I'm going to type in 40,000. I'm going to pretend I don't know that payment right now. And the future value here is going to be 0, and our payments are going to be 12 and 12. Now, to calculate that payment, what I have to do is I have to hit alpha and then solve. And so now I can see that that payment is $740 and about 28 cents, and so on and so forth. Now, on my software here with my teacher software, I can refresh these screens and I can see that I have some things in Y1. I really don't need to worry about this graph right here. I'm going to change that to a list right now, and I'm going to go ahead and leave this in blank for what we're going to do. Because one thing that was really important to me for my students was to really look at numbers. And so I'm going to use the features of the app in a different way. So in Y1, I'm going to hit the app again and go to Finance. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a list of the balance, which is number 9. So I can go down to 9 right here, and I'm going to find the balance at certain payments, and we're going to call those payments X because it's going to vary. In Y2, I'm going to actually look at the principal. So again, I'm going to go back into the app, into the Finance app, and we have a command here where we can sum the principal as well. And so we're going to sum the principal payments, and this is going to be x comma x. I'm going to close up those parentheses. And then the last column I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into the app for the finance, and this time I'm going to sum the interest payments. And the interest payments, we need to have a beginning and then an end, so this is going to be x comma x as well. Now, I don't want to graph this. What I want to do is I want to look at the table for this. And so if I refresh this real quick, there's my table here. And so I'm going to go second table, and we can see that we had our $40,000 car, and it's the same information that we had on the amortization table, except now it's in the student's hands. So we can go and we can look at these values as X increases, as the number of payments. One of the disadvantages is, or one of the advantages is that I have to redefine what these are. If I go into Y1, this was the balance after I make the 13th payment. We have $32,030 here. And Y2, that was what went to principal. And Y3, that's what we went to the payment. So looking at these values, what's kind of nice compared to our original amortization table is that they're not rounded to whole numbers. We actually are looking at a little bit of dollars and cents. And just even highlighting right here, we can see the whole calculation. And all I'm doing is I'm moving left and right as I move up and down to kind of see those values. Now, what would be a nice thing to get home to students, just looking at these table of values, knowing that we do have our principal here, we do have our interest, and we do have our balance. And one thing that we thought would be really, really good to kind of hit home with students, again, just in a table of values right here, is if we go back to y equals, what should happen when I take my principal and add it to my interest? And it might be that I want to go back and look at my table here. So if I have this principal and this interest, what should we know about these two values here? And that could be that if I add those up, it's really easy for us to actually go alpha, and hidden inside of our soft keys up here, wrong one. Helps if I hit the right one. So I'm going to go back to table. And so if I hit my alpha F4, we can do our Y1 and our Y2. So I'm going to go back to the Y equals here and do that. And so we're going to hit alpha, and we're going to hit Y1. But I don't want Y1, I actually want Y2. And that's one thing that's really nice is this feature in the teacher view can help me with that. So I'm going to press 2. And if I add it to Y3, again, I'm not going to see anything in the graph right here, but when I go to the table, the amount that I pay to my principal and the amount that I paid to interest all add up to that original payment. And that realization, just even looking at this numerically, was really important for my students. And I happened to have done this lesson at an Algebra 2 level last year, is just for them to actually look at tables of values, because I realized that I was not doing tables of values enough with my students for them to look at this numerically. So we're looking at this in a number sense in a financial application, kind of going back to our original premise of why we're doing this. Now we're going to come back to the TI-84, but right now we're going to go ahead and go back to the TI-Nspire and kind of get back into finding those calculations.
All right.
So I'm going to stop sharing my screen, Ms. Carlson, and give you the world.
All right. Always passing the ball. Okay. So we just did that with the TI-84 CE, and you could see the nice color aspect of it, how it looks in a table, and how, again, you could look at those rate of change values. And then you can even do some calculations to see that was the payment, and people were noticing that in the chat window. And so now what we're going to do is we're going to use the financial solver on the TI-Nspire. And so that's what you just showed. And so I just want to make sure that you guys, you might need to explain what these variables are to your students. And so here's just a little graphic about that. We have N as number of payments, and that's why we do the calculation per month. You have to make a payment each month. And then Kim talked about interest rate is in terms of a percent, and that is different in the finance world as opposed to what we would do in our algebraic situations. Present value, what's the amount of the loan? Payment is what we're solving for, and you can take your Nspire or your TI-84 out with you when you purchase a vehicle or get some payment, loan of some sort. Kim and I have both done that, and we argue with the folks that are doing our loan or our car loan that, no, we want a better percent, or, it's not about that. Future value, of course, is 0. You want to pay that off. And then PPY is the number of payments paid per year. And then this is where the interest is compounded each year. And then payment you can designate it if it's at the beginning of the month or at the end of the month. And I think we just selected the end of the month for our scenario. And I don't know, I guess it's when it's compounded at that time. So I don't really know the significance of that. So anyways, that's just something for your information, just to kind of put a little bit more clarity to what it is we're doing. So here I am in my Nspire software, and this is my teacher software that I'm using this evening. And many of you might be thinking, well, I'm going to go and get a calculator, and I'm going to go into menu, and I can go to use the finance tool and get my TVM solver there. And that's perfectly all right, and you're welcome to do that. But I'm going to do something a little bit different this evening. I'm going to just mark on here, because once we leave, sometimes it's hard to calculator page. So I'm just going to show that this is a calculator page, and it doesn't like that because I'm just using letters here, and it's not a defined variable. So, but that just helps remind me. So I'm going to go and I'm going to insert a notes page now. And I don't know if you guys are aware, but in a notes page, what you can do is go to, well, first of all, let's talk about what it is that we're going to have. And I'm going to title this, and I'm going to make it a finance solver. Okay, so notes page is just, I can go in and I can take notes, and I can type stuff, and it's not going to italicize it. It's not going to make it a variable. But within a notes page, I can go to menu, calculations, and there's that finance again. So I can go to finance, and I can use my finance solver in a notes page. And that, I think, is pretty slick. And so let's go ahead and do that same scenario that we just did with Kim a few minutes ago. So the number of payments is going to be 5, and then times 12. So we're going to do the same thing. And then our interest rate is going to be 4.2. And then present value is our car loan, our really souped up Camaro. And then our payment is what we're going to solve for, but I need to put in a few more things before I solve for that. So I'm going to skip that for now. And then I'm going to go down to future value. We want that to be 0. And then my payments per year will be 12. And then it'll be compounded then 12. I think these are generally the same. And then I'm just going to leave it that we're going to have the payment at the end, and that's when it's compounded. So when we use these solver tools, we have to have our cursor on the cell, if you will, of what we want to solve. And so here I want to figure out what is that monthly payment going to be with that interest rate, that amount of money, and for 60 payments, which would be 5 years. And then so now on the Nspire, I can just push enter, and that's the same number that Kim came up with just a few minutes ago. So that's my payment, and you can see that I have, I'm able to show on my Nspire a few more decimal places there, but there's where we get that 28 cents. Okay, so I've done this calculation. So now that means that I have created these variables. And so I'm going to go ahead and escape out of this because I can't really do anything else with this. I could take a screenshot of it if I wanted to. But we did these calculations, but now I want to see them on my screen. And so what is it that I want to see? Well, I'm going to go to my variable key here, and I want to see what is my payment going to be. So I can come over here and then time value money, this is my payment. And if I push enter here, that's going to show me my payment. And then variable, I can go for present value. And present value was $40,000. That's what I had. And then I can go to what my interest rate is. And that was my interest rate, 4.2. And then now I can go to my number of payments and enter. So that gives me some information that I can now see on my screen, and I can even go in and I can change some things, and I can add some text to it if I wanted to. One thing I don't know if you guys know, but you can come in here and you can go and edit this. This is a math box. Because of that red dotted line, dotted box around it, it has some attributes. And you're able to go and change some things if you wanted to. You could make that an equal sign, and I could go and do my display digits. These are floats. I don't want floats, but I could fix it at 2 because when I'm dealing with money, I like it to look like dollars and cents. So I can go in and change those attributes. So when I do that, I've highlighted, I've clicked or selected in where I'm at, and I'm going to do a right click, and again, that math box attribute. So that's right click is my context menu. And I can go in here and I can make that an equal sign and do my digits to 2. So after float comes fix, and that's how it is when you do your settings as well. And so I'm going to do it again really quickly, and definitely is really fast on the software. Of course, you can do this on the handheld, and so students are able to do it. Generally, they're not using the software. Sometimes maybe if they're using their computer version. And then again, I want to fix it. Oh, this one I'm going to fix it, but it doesn't need to because I'm talking about a number. So anyways, I just wanted to show you that. I'm seeing some things flash up on the chat window. Kim, anything notable? They flash and go away for me.
We were kind of talking about whether or not the payment per year and the compounding per year would ever be different, or if there's a scenario where they would be different. And we don't have any suggestions for that. And I do know that the calculator just kind of automatically makes them the same. I don't know if we can force them to be different, but I've never had a need to do that.
Right. Okay. All right. So the other thing that sometimes students aren't really aware of is that lending institutions are lending you money for a fee. And it's not for nice people. You know, they want it, that's how they make their money as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to insert another notes page here. And I want to find out the actual cost of my dream car. And so I'm going to go and I'm going to get some calculations on here again. So I know that my payment is a little over $740 each month. And my number of payments is 60. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take that. So how much am I really paying? It's the my payment times the number of payments, right? And that is, I'm going to save that. I'm going to store it. And I'm going to call that total cost, no space. So I'm going to create a variable there when I take my payment and my number of payments, and I've now made total cost. And so I see something up here about some negatives, and remember my amount that I'm borrowing was $40,000, and so when I make a payment I'm taking away $740.28 each month. And so I have taken away from my account, you know, that's how I'm looking at it, $44,000. So now how much is that, what was the actual loan amount? The present value was $40,000. So could I do another calculation? Well, because I made my total cost, that now has become a variable. And what I'm going to do, instead of subtracting, I'm going to add the present value because that's how much I've borrowed. And I'm going to store this as a new variable, and I'm going to call it interest paid, no spaces. So I have lost out of pocket, of course, the $40,000 for my dream car, but I paid an additional $416.60 for my dream car. Now, one thing that I really want to show that I haven't done yet, I'm going to go back over here to my finance solver, is I'm going to go back and let's make some adjustments. Let's just go tinker with this. So I'm going to go back to Menu, Calculations, Finance, Finance Solver, and let's say that I had a Labor Day sale at the car lot, and I was able to get 0.9% interest. And I'm still going to do 5 years, so I'm changing that, and now I'm going to recalculate what would my payment be. So I'm not changing anything else in my scenario, but my interest rate. Labor Day sales coming up, they want to get rid of the 2018s. Enter, so I can see how much there that I have changed. Now I'm going to escape, because what have I just done now? I have changed the amount of my payment, and I have changed my interest rate. So when I escape, this is where you can see that dynamic capability. My payment now has changed, and my amount of interest has changed. And I'm still in the same problem. I haven't changed problem number. I'm still in where those variables are the same. Let's go see over here when I calculated my actual cost. So here's my payment that changed because I have a good interest rate now, or a better one. And then I have my total cost. And then here's my interest paid. So wow,
Veronica,
it's under $1,000. Yes, ma'am.
So, so one of our participants is saying, in my entire finance units, that's the main thing I focus upon, how much extra you pay in interest when paying off student loans. And I can tell you, when I did this with my students last year, that's when they got so upset. They're like, well, I'm never going to take out a loan. I'm never going to do all these things. And I can tell you another thing that less mature students they had a little bit of a problem taking these variables and turning it into another variable, because we're looking at words instead of just X's and Y's. So I know that when I did this on the side board, I did some of the calculations by hand, because that's what you would normally do a little bit. It's just kind of eyeballing and some estimating. But when we changed it, just like you did, that was the big wow of, oh, I can just have all my calculations poof by just changing one thing. And that's when they saw the value of doing this, because it was still very abstract until we started focusing on the change.
Right. Right. And the thing that's nice with the TI-Nspire technology is that it is dynamic, and you don't have to start from ground zero again. And you can kind of put some things together. I could go in here and I could change things to some equal signs and things if I wanted to. The other thing is that back to a home loan, a lot of students, you know, that might not be something that they do immediately, but wow, what is the difference between a 30-year and a 15-year? And, you know, if you can really hunker down and, you know, eat beans and rice, as Dave Ramsey says, and then to talk and explore about those college loans. And, you know, oftentimes students can get a lot of money on that loan, but you got to pay a lot of money back. So to have some of those life and college and career ready discussions with students is very valuable. So good discussion, and thanks participants for all those chat questions. All right, so Kim, I'm going to pass this back to you, and I think you're going to show us an amortization table on the 84.
So we're back here to our TI-84, and same scenario. We haven't really changed anything over here. We did look at the table, but what I really want to do is I want to go back to the home screen. And so what I did is I pressed second quit, and just like on the TI-Nspire, I don't have a notes page, but I have a way to do those same calculations. And so I'm going to go into the app, and I have the finance right here, and I have this TVM solver. And so we did 60 payments. We're back at 4.2 interest. We have the present value of $40,000. We have a payment right here. And just to kind of review this, what if I decide that I want a $50,000 car? And that means the payment's going to change. So in order to calculate that payment, I wish I could zoom in on this right here, but it says solve above the enter, and it's green on my screen. So when I hit alpha solve, that's how I get my new payment. Another thing I could do is I could say, you know what, it might be that I can only afford a $500 payment for my dream car here. So I could enter in the payment being $500 and then go up and figure out how much can I get a loan for then and do alpha solve. And then that means that really I can only afford a $27,000 car. So this menu allows us to do different things and solve for different pieces of this without having to do the algebra, which is kind of cool. So we have so many more questions that we can ask students. I'm just going to go back to my $40,000 loan. And when I do that, that means I need to go back and recalculate my payment. So I did alpha solve to do that. And if I just go back to that screen right here, I want to kind of know some things about that stuff. So one thing we can do is inside the finance app, there's these variables here. So just like on the TI-Nspire, we had variables. On the TI-84, we have variables. So I could say, well, if I take my number of payments and I multiply it, and if I just go back to my finance app again, and it is kind of like pressing a lot of buttons, but the number of payments that I'm going to have to make is that extra amount. So now I can see that I have to pay a little bit more than $4,000 in addition to my $40,000 car. And I can use that again using these variables.
And again, Kim, that's because you actually use the finance tool or that finance app, and so it's stored in the calculator.
Absolutely.
Right.
And if I'm going to change things on the 84, I do have to go back in and say, all right, let's go ahead and go with a $50,000 car. I'm just going to change it by equal amounts right now. And then I'm going to change that solve right here. Now, this isn't going to update. It's not a live update like it was on a notes page. But what I can do is I can go up to here and copy down the equation. And now I can see the difference. And
because those variables have refreshed what that value is.
Absolutely. And so that's kind of a nice thing to be able to do, because I know that I've, before many, many years ago when I bought my first car, I did walk in with my TI-83, and the guy's sitting there, this is what your payment's going to be. And I'm like, no, how much is my car going to be?
Right.
And having that conversation of this is what I'm willing to pay for the car, I really didn't care about the payment because I had the payment right there sitting on my calculator. Now, another thing that I don't know that people know about the software that's kind of nice. So I have this calculator screen up here. I refreshed, and so now I have my new table of values here. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to move my calculator over. I'm going to hope that Windows plays a little bit nice with me. And I have a smart notebook here. What I love about the TI-84 software, did you just see that? I can
wow. They're all saying wow. They're all saying wow.
I can just drag this over, and then I can have a conversation with my students about values here, and I can make it bigger or whatever. And so now we can go back to that rate of change idea, you know, whether or not I want to talk about the change here and the change here. And that was a conversation I did have with my Algebra 2 kids, is talking about rate of change and noticing that it wasn't constant. It was slightly different, but it was not constant, so this was not a linear calculation. Now, another one of our learning outcomes was that we were going to talk, and that is true. It drags into any software that you are working with. So Word, I've dragged it into Google Docs. It plays nice with many, many things, which is great. One of our other objectives that we wanted to do, though, is we wanted to talk about the catalog. And so I'm going to clear my screen right here. And so we've been in the Finance app. I went over to the variable, and I grabbed the variables from here. And like with many TI products, we can grab variables from other places. So even right here, this is the TVM solver payment variable. This is the TVM solver interest. So if I just press enter and put that on there, it's going to tell me, it's going to remind me that, hey, I did 4.2%. So again, it's in a couple different screens. It just depends on what is most instructionally appropriate for your students. Can they handle having these extra 3 letters here? Or maybe you want to go to the VARs and have them here. The other place that I found it first, to be perfectly honest, because I didn't read my screen, I will admit that that's what happened, is I like the catalog. I'm a longtime user of the catalog. So what I'm doing is I'm pressing second in catalog. That's a blue word right there, so I had to hit the blue button. And if I go to TVM solver, that's a T, and I'm already in alpha mode. I can see up here at the top of my screen there's a little A next to the battery saying, hey, I'm in alpha. And I'm going to press on T, which is a 4, and then I can go down, and then it's going to say, hey, you have TVM future value, TVM interest, TVM N, TVM payment, and I can select those. Now, what I like about some of this as well is that we can hit the plus key, and it'll tell me some other things about it. So maybe not useful for this particular variable, so I'm going to hit escape on that. But when I use the catalog, it will also tell me other commands for it. What I just want to do is I want to take my payments, and I'm going to multiply it by, well, I know that we had 5 years and 12 payments per year. And sometimes students instructionally need to see that written out again to know that that would be the total. Remembering that I changed my values in for my dream car. And so we just wanted to make sure that we did talk about the catalog and know where that we can get things in the catalog. And then also just the ease of use with the app, because those variables are here along with other commands, along with just using the variables here so that we can work with them. And so, Veronica, I'm going to pass
hang on.
it back to you.
Okay. I think there were some participants that wanted to see the key press history.
Oh,
and so
okay.
If you could just turn that on.
Absolutely. All right. So I'm going to hit second quit real quick. And so up here,
I think it's next.
One,
yeah.
There's this guy here.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So here's my key press history. So all these things I've done, and I'm going to kind of go back over to my Smart Notebook because I don't want you guys to see my desktop because it's messy. I am dragging specific keys over to here. I believe I can copy them. I'm going to try. I'm just hitting Control-Alt, Control-C. Well, not Control-Alt. And then, nope, they didn't all go over there. But yes, definitely having these keys up here, and then you can just clear them. Do I want to clear? Yes, I do want to clear. And what's nice about it is I can start from the beginning, and I can tell my students what I'm going to do. I'm going to hit the Apps button. I'm going to hit 1 for Finance. I'm going to go to TVM Solver. I'm going to type in the 60 or the 12 times 5 and go and change all the interest and stuff like that. So this is really key to doing some other things. Are there other
I think that was the only thing I saw there. I don't know, Michael, is there something else that we're seeing? People are liking the Smart View software.
I will tell you that you can change these to whatever you want them to be. And they don't have to be up. So we can
make those go away.
Make those go away. I'm going to clear that.
Sometimes I think that key press history gets a little bogged down. So, you know, doing something new, and you can turn it on and off, and that's what's really nice with this Smart View software. It's really necessary when you're using the calculators with your students and just demonstrating what you're doing. So,
and they really do appreciate it.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
All right, so I'm going to send this back to you.
All right. And I need to share my screen. Whoop, you got to pass the ball.
It's not moving. All right, here we go. So now you have the ball, so now that you can share your screen.
Okay. There we are. So going back over here. So we did that finance solver, which was super cool and very dynamic. And then now what we're going to do is talk about an amortization table. And so I'm going to stay in my same problem, and I'm going to insert another notes page. And like Kim showed you the catalog, the Nspire 2 has a catalog, and it looks like this book over here. Sometimes in my class we call it the Math Bible. And there you have an amortization table. And sometimes when you turn wizards on, that helps you to fill things in, but that doesn't help when I use an amortization table. So that the wizard isn't functional for that. If TI people are listening, though, that would be something nice that we would be able to use. But it does remind you of what you need and the order of it down here when you select that. It gives you what it is that you need to create an amortization table. So you can get that from the catalog. The other thing is that you can also copy and paste it from a document. And so I do have it here in my Smart Notebook page. And so what I am going to do is I'm going to go and just copy it just so that I have it, as a reference. But I'm going to show everybody how to get it. So I'm copying it, and I'm going to go in here, and I'm going to paste it. So that's my amortization table, and I'll show you something different with that too in just a minute. So I'm going to come here, and I'm going to go to my menu, Calculation, Finance, Amortization, Table. So there's my table. Notice that there's a red box around it, so that's a math box, so there's going to be a calculation there. And so what these numbers or variables are representing, the first one is how many lines I want to see in my table. Now, obviously, if I want to see all my payments, I'm going to have a really long line or a large number. it's very hard on a student's handheld. It really takes a lot of memory to do that. So I am just going to show, for our purposes of our webinar this evening, 10. Now the software can handle it, and you can have a really long one. Kim did one with 360 lines, but you can decide that. But when you're doing this with students, you don't, on their handhelds, you really don't want to have that number too large. And so now we're going to go and get the variables, because remember, we've already done that calculation. I haven't changed anything. So it's the same calculation that we have done. And so we want to go get the number of payments. And you're separating everything with a comma. And when this is bold, that means that it is a variable that has a value there. And I don't know if you guys knew that or not. But that's a cue to the students that I have done a calculation. There's my interest rate, and then I'm going to get present value, and then payment, comma, and then now I'm doing future value, comma, and payments per year, comma, and then compounding per year. Don't know why they're not together, alpha order, I guess. And then payment total. And then the last one is how many digits I'd like to see, and I'm going to go 2. Again, because we're talking about money, I like to make it look like money. So that is my amortization table, and I just went and copied that from a document just to have there, but you could have it in front of you. That's just helped me for the purposes of our webinar. I probably would give that to students because it is kind of complicated and really easy for them to make a mistake, so I could have that on a page ready for them to do that. So here I am, and I'm going to push enter, and voila. I think that's kind of cool. It's right here on our handheld device. And so this first column is talking about the payment, the repayment, and then my interest paid, and then principal, and then the balance of the loan.
Veronica, some people asked whether or not you did a, the document was already made for your students instead of creating the notes pages as you go. And I can tell you that I did it both ways with my students. I found that they were more engaged when they were creating it as we were going, and they didn't really worry about the typing as much as I did, because it's really easy for us to type on our keyboards and actually put lots of good words in there. But the students, it didn't bother them so much as long as they could shortcut some stuff. So there's some pluses to having it all filled out for them, but I found that it was almost too scripted and they didn't go and explore other relationships or other financial trends because they were only following the script.
Right. And it depends on probably the purpose of your lesson, and do you want them to be using those variables and understanding them more so, or are they kind of beginners and they haven't done it a lot? You know, you have to be the judge of that as to, you know, you can have things prepared and ready to go for them. If you don't, though, have something that you already put in to the finance solver, then it's going to look all wacky and undefined because it only is showing those values. Remember, we did that because I did a calculation. I could go and insert a new problem here, and I can go even to my calculator, and I can go finance, and we could go here, and I can, if I don't do anything, I guess that's what I wanted to show you, is that I have no variables because I haven't done any calculation. And so that's something that I think you want to be careful of or just be aware of if you sent them something that was pre-done. Because part of the fun is to discover that and use that solver and put those numbers in. At least that's what I think is part of the fun, and to have them kind of think about it. And then we did see a lot of comments from our participants that, that's really important for them to really see how much they actually pay for something. And those are big wow moments, and that they, they don't really know getting a loan that they're paying back sometimes a lot more than what they borrowed. So, and that's how those institutions make money. So, anything else from the chat room, Kim, that you see?
I see some people that are asking about different little commands, and they're using Google as their friend, which Google is my friend as well.
Absolutely.
And there's lots of wonderful things and hidden little treasures in here that are easy to incorporate into our classes, from a mathematical point of view, but also, financial literacy is super important.
Absolutely, and not adding more to our curriculum, but integrated it in with things that we already do.
Yeah, and then there were some other things. When it gets more complicated, again, this is just a TVM solver, so it's more of a simple situation. If you're going to make payments early, if you're going to be looking at credit cards, which do compound differently, that might be when we need different software, and we need other things.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And then just things to think about is, how could you use this in your classroom? What are things that you could do? What would be the next thing you would purchase? What would be the next thing? And it sounded like college loans was something that would be something very pertinent, especially to juniors and seniors. Having conversations about staying in state and not spending as much money at the university level as opposed to going out of state and taking more of a student loan. Those are things to be mindful of, and to help our students be mindful of, and give them tools to start thinking about things, or at least having conversations about it. So, anything else, Kim?
I don't believe so. The chat is a little quiet. Good exercise to determine how much you need to deposit monthly if you retire. So yeah, turning this around into investments is the next step too.
It looked like we asked if there's resources on the website, and I have not seen a lot of stuff on the website. Michael, I'm handing the ball back to you.
Before you do that, Veronica.
Oh, yep, I'm going back.
And I was looking up an answer on my computer. So the sequence for finding the amortization on the TI-Nspire. Did you show them the catalog piece?
I did. I did. I'll show that again. So here I can go to amortization table, and here's where you can go grab it. Now,
and I can also tell you, if you go to the TI website on the knowledge base, that's actually where I originally found it, and I was so excited that you could do an amortization table that I was just like, this has to happen in class. That's actually where this all started.
So there I can go grab my amortization table, but that didn't do anything, so I have no variables. But let me go into catalog, and I will show you one thing I did do one time, and I don't know if you guys are going to like this or not. Let's see if I can go in here, and I just want to make sure copy this whole thing, and then I can paste it here. And it looks kind of ugly, but that's a reminder of what it is that I'm doing. So N, number of payment, and then that was the variable, the TVM saw N, and then the I, and then the present value, payment, future value. So that gives you kind of a shortcut or a reminder, but it isn't a wizard, so you have to still go in and copy it. And the other thing is when you have that amortization table, if I go and copy it, I do have to make sure that I put it in a math box. So here I have a math box. If I have it in a document here, for instance, and I'm going to copy it, I can go and I can paste it in here, and I can enter it, but it has to be in that math box. That's what that red line all around is. But this is the shortcut to tell you what all these variables are. Did that help a little bit, Kim?
That does. And I will say that is the one page on a document I did send my kids with it already done. And it was just at the end, and just because it was easier. But I think that's it.
All right. Michael, I'm going to share the world or the ball with you. I call it the world. There you go.
Thanks, Veronica. You can share the world, the ball, whatever you want. But thanks so much. To receive a certificate of attendance for tonight, go ahead and click that link in the chat window. Also, this is the link for the documents that we use tonight. And in case these links aren't working for you for any reason, just hang tight. You'll automatically get in a couple days a follow-up email. And in that follow-up email will be a link to the recording, a link to the certificate, and a link for the documents as well. And if you're watching this on demand, go ahead and copy that link into your favorite browser to receive your certificate. So thanks so much, Veronica and Kim, for everything you shared tonight. I'm already looking in the chat window, and there's a lot of positive comments coming your way. So again, thanks so much, everyone, for attending tonight, and thanks so much to Kim and Veronica for everything you shared.
My pleasure.
It was a great evening. Thank you.
Thanks for joining, everybody.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great night, and we'll see you back online real soon. Good night.